Thank you, Mark. Just underway here in Durban, and there's an early free kick to the Japanese side, a foul by Wesley Schneider. When we have another break, perhaps run you through the teams. In fact, the Japanese, rather curiously, have just thrashed that free kick forwards towards the Dutch goal. I don't know whether the referee will allow that to be retaken. Well, in fact, he is. The Argentine referee says, no, that was too quick, but I'm not quite sure what they were trying to do there, David.
No, Van Bommel went to see the referee to query. He tried to take it early, and it just flew over the byline, but when they do take it towards the right-hand side, it's intercepted by Van Bronckhorst, and the Dutch start in possession of the ball, building steadily as they do.
Ball's played to this near side to Van Bronckhorst, who is the Dutch captain, and then it's played back to him down this near side by Van der Vaart, and the Dutch just making a slow start. It's a wonderful sunny day again in Durban. The high-rise buildings in downtown Durban provide a stunning backdrop in this impressive German-designed stadium. Here's Schneider for the Dutch, midway inside the Japanese half. The ball's worked out to the far side and to Van Bommel, and then played into the midfield, but Honda motoring through that midfield of the Netherlands in their bright orange shirts, black shorts and orange socks. And then there's a foul by De Jong, who will have to watch himself throughout this game because he is on a yellow card, as is Robin van Persie of Arsenal. And it will be a Japanese free kick, which will be taken by Tulio Tanaka, and the referee wants an early word with Nigel de Jong. David, please.
Yes, I think we can expect a few tackles from Nigel de Jong and Mark van Bommel. They will be in the midfield to restrain the likes of Endo, Abe, the sitter, and Hasibi. We've been quite impressed with the Japanese so far. They're sharp in possession. I don't want to remind listeners, but they were in the ascendancy against England quite recently. Even
though they ultimately lost that match, of course, at Wembley. They played pretty well, and they've come into the World Cup actually in poor form, but that was an exceptionally good victory for them, of course, against Cameroon in their first match. We've got two unbeaten teams here because, of course, Holland dispatched Denmark by 2-0. We've got two unchanged sides as well. Stecklenburg in goal for the Netherlands, Van der Wiel, Heitinga, Matthijssen and Van Bronckhorst at the back. Van Bommel and De Jong are the holding midfielders. Kout, Schneider and Van der Vaart ahead of them, and then Robin van Persie of Arsenal up front. Kawashima is in goal for the Japanese. Kimono, Nakazawa, Tulio Tanaka and Nagatomo at the back. Abe is the holding midfielder. Ahead of him, the captain Hasibi, and the Asian Footballer of the Year Endo. Matsui on the right, Akubo and Honda. And the two lineups are matching up really, as Van Bronckhorst plays a long ball down the line. It's a good clearing header that from Nakazawa. Now on this near side, the ball's just lobbed forward by Kimono and out of play at the head of Matthijssen, and it will be, well, it's actually come off a Japanese player. It will actually be a Dutch throw, which will be taken by Van Bronckhorst. Played almost 4 minutes, very pedestrian open.
Yeah, well, the Dutch will take their time. They're patient. They know when to change the pace, when to quicken. They wait for their opportunity. They wait for their opportunity to get a man over.
Well, here is Van Persie with a decent-looking cross, but it's headed behind. Just as well, Nagatomo was there as well, headed behind for the game's first corner. Van der Vaart will go over to the far side, towards a sea of orange, really. There are lots and lots of Dutch fans here. It's a great spectacle because, of course, we've got lots of South African supporters in their yellow Bafana shirts as well. Here comes the corner, headed up into the air by a Japanese defender and cleared by Matsui. Only as far as De Jong, who plays a rather curious ball backwards to Van Bronckhorst. Not entirely sure that's what the Manchester City man intended, but Kout has worked it cleverly via Schneider back to De Jong, but they're backtracking. They will be hard working, if nothing else, this Japanese side, and Honda not giving a moment's breathing space to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, Honda are playing as a lone striker for Japan. We've just been listening a lot about systems of play from Graham and Robbie there, and Van Persie playing similarly. So if you would like, when you lose possession, you always have that insurance of the five-man midfield, and you've just left that isolated front player up the front to just shift between the two centre-backs and just try and hold them up a little bit so they're unable to pick their heads up and play the more direct penetrating pass early.
Just over 5 minutes played on 5 Live, Saturday lunchtime in downtown Durban, and it's 0-0 between Holland and Japan. And the ball is just squared by Heitinga via Van Bommel, back to Heitinga. Now here's Van der Wiel on the far side, the wild boy of Dutch football, who was thrown out of the Ajax academy but has sort of recovered and is back playing in Amsterdam for his first club. Ball's knocked into the Dutch half, but nobody can reach that, and there's a foul on one of the Dutch players. Van Bommel it is.
Yeah, Van der Wiel, who David refers to, easily the youngest of the Dutch side. He's only 22. He has a February birthday, as does the left back, of course, Van Bronckhorst, but he had his birthday 13 years before. He's 35.
And will be retiring after this World Cup. This is his 101st cap today. The ex-Rangers and Arsenal fullback, playing, of course, at Feyenoord in Rotterdam. It's 0-0. As I say, fairly pedestrian stuff in the opening 7 minutes here. But Holland were impressive against Denmark in that opening match, and they're on a very, very impressive unbeaten run of 20 matches under Bert van Marwijk. Ball's played to Van Bommel for Holland inside the centre circle. They're the more comfortable team, certainly in terms of keeping possession early on. Heitinga plays it forward. Schneider then plays it backwards. This is Van Persie with just a little bit of space outside the box. He went down. I thought there was a little bit of play acting there. I thought he went down a little bit too easily. The referee, though, has given the free kick. The Japanese did protest. I don't think they were too impressed by that decision. This time the Dutch tried to take a free kick quickly, but to no avail, because the referee wants things brought back, and there is actually a Japanese player down injured, clutching his face.
Yeah, Kamano's gone down clutching his face as Van Persie. I think he used his arms just to push by him and tried to get the ball out to Dirk Kuyt. Dirk Kuyt is playing on the left-hand side. Van der Vaart, who's essentially a left-footed player, is playing out wide on the right. But what you do see when the Dutch get the ball at the back, or as they come forward in the centre field, they've got width. They spread. Kuyt wide on the touchline, Van der Vaart wide on the other touchline, which gives room for Schneider to come and receive the ball and pick up the ball and work that Dutch rhythm.
It was, in fact, Van Persie with that ridiculous roll, really. He rolled over and over and over again, and eventually his right boot caught the Japanese defender. So we have a fairly lengthy stoppage here with 8 minutes played in Durban. It's the Netherlands 0, Japan 0. Don't forget, later in Group D at 3 o'clock, Ghana against Australia from Rustenburg. And then at 7:30 in this group, this is Group E, Cameroon against Denmark. And that match is in Pretoria. It will be Schneider who is going to take this free kick, and Kimona is actually going to have to come off on a stretcher temporarily, at least. The Japanese are down to just 10 men. David.
Yeah, and at this angle there's just a chance that Schneider might try and go for goal.
Well, we saw a goal for the Nigerians, David and I, the other day from pretty similar position, where there was a sort of feigned header, a dummied header, and the ball went in, and Schneider is shooting, and it's about 3 yards over the crossbar. It's the first effort on target. In truth, that wasn't that close. It was always rising, and in fairness to the goalkeeper, Kawashima, I think he had it covered.
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of rubbish spoken about the ball, but in truth, it isn't easy to keep the 30-40 yard drive down. That has been seen. And there was Schneider, a good technical player, who wasn't able to keep that ball under the bar. It just seared above the bar. But once again, interestingly, Schneider going to take all the free kicks, going to probably be very involved today. They have to make sure that he is held tight in the marking, and I think that will be maybe Abe's job.
Well, Abe is right behind Schneider as he gets the ball, but he still manages to release it. And here's Van der Wiel motoring down the right-hand side. Finds Kuyt. Van der Vaart wants it on this near side, but it's played short by Van Bommel to Kuyt, and then out to the far side. This is good Dutch movement, Kuyt, and I think Van Persie wanted to cross short, but in the end it's run all the way across the face of the penalty area. Van der Vaart keeps it in. Van Bronckhorst has it for the Dutch now. There's an opportunity. Oh, dramatic overhead kick from Kuyt. Cannons off a Japanese defender and is cleared out to the far side, where Nagatomo will just hack it forward. Anywhere really would do there. Back into the Dutch half.
The Japanese will be pleased if Kimono gets back on the field quickly. They're playing with 10 men at the moment. Kimono is on the touchline. He wants to come on. The Argentinian referee must wait for a break in play before he allows him on. So meanwhile, the Japanese make sure they behind the ball, try and fill the spaces.
Actually, the full-back is back on. The referee didn't bother waiting for the breaking plays, just ushered him back onto the field. Count loses it, but Holland having an awful lot of possession in these early stages. The ball's just turned backwards initially by Matsui for Japan. Now it's to this near side. Honda is the player furthest forward. It goes back into the defence though, and Nakazawa, who plays it forward again into the midfield for Matsui. Matsui plays a neat 1-2 with a Akabo, and now Matsui has it back. Honda wants it, but in fact it's worked out to the left hand side. First we've really seen of Japan in an attacking sense. Nagatomo, the full-back, up in support, plays the 1-2 towards the edge of the penalty. Shot comes in from Nagatomo, and it wasn't that far wide in truth, about 2 yards wide of Stecklenburg's left hand post.
Tremendous play by Matsui in that move there. He started the move in his own half, he linked up, and then he finally gave the pass that led to the shot that just went past the post. Good play. Plays in Grenoble in France, and he certainly was influential in that move there. Diminutive little midfield player, plays from the right hand side.
Well, the Japanese midfield, the Blue Samurai midfield, is supposedly their strength. They have Honda in fantastic form for CSKA Moscow. They have the Asian Player of the Year, as I mentioned, Endo, Wolfsburg's Hasibi. And then we saw some good stuff there from Matsui, who's played for a few years now for 2 or 3 different French clubs. Ball's with Heitinger of Everton. Finds his Merseyside colleague Kout of Liverpool, then out to the far side. The previous Dutch move was orchestrated by Schneider, who of course has had an excellent season. First season with Inter Milan, a treble winner in his debut season in Milan. He's another product though of the Ajax Amsterdam Academy. De Jong, a former Hamburg man, now at Manchester City, plays it out to the far side. Heiting with a good ball. This is Kout. Down the left hand side it goes. Van Persie's gone very wide onto that far side. He's upended. The linesman raises his flag. Referee concurs. It will be a Dutch free kick.
Yeah, I think it was the assistant that made up the referee's mind for him there. And it's also a dangerous position, particularly for a left footer. The Dutch, unlike England, have got several left footers, and I think that's important for the balance of a team. They have 4. And certainly with Schneider, who I believe is a good 2-footed player, and I think that's so important. We'll see how this kick takes shape.
But Schneider's leaving this one to Van der Vaart, and Schneider actually was the nearest Dutch player to getting his head to the ball there, but it was good Japanese defence, and the referee spotted it an infringement. A foul there on Tulio Tanaka, and there will be a free kick inside their own box for the Japanese.
Yes, they want to work the ball, the Dutch, because Tulio Tanaka was particularly impressive in his head work when they played England. I was quite impressed with him, and he's going to be strong there, and if they put too many balls in deep, then the Grampas centre half will handle them pretty well.
I mentioned, of course, the orange of the Dutch and the yellow of the South African supporters. I just ran out of time, but I ought to mention how many Japanese supporters have made the trip. They really do love their football in Japan, and there's an awful lot of Blue Samurai supporters here in Durban. It remains 0-0, played almost 14 minutes here in the Moses Madiba Stadium in Durban. Goalless and pretty much chanceless so far.
We should also say that the stadium's about 90% full, which is excellent, at least 90%. There's a terrific atmosphere, there's a swathe of orange over the far side, and it's fantastic. The stadium is the best I've seen so far. It's a wonderful, wonderful setting. I think the Dutch will, once they get their play moving at a swifter pace, will do it justice.
Once again, as we've seen at other tournaments, the cheap seats are full, but the corporate hospitality areas, there are lots and lots of empty seats. I think they've certainly priced the South Africans out of the market, really, of FIFA. Ball is with De Jong on the halfway line for Holland. 14 and a half minutes played here in Durban. Ball back to Matthijssen, back to De Jong again, and that's a really careless pass. He was looking for his captain Van Bronckhorst, and he's put the ball straight out of play, and it will be a Japanese throw-in, which be taken by Kimona, who is back on, and we're just waiting for a ball.
Yes, Abe, the marker of Schneider, is never more than a yard away from his side. That's clearly his job today. And whenever the Dutch get the ball at the back, there's a ring of 5 immediately that just plays in front of them and says, come and play around us, see how good you are, and almost taunts them to play that longer ball, which they deny themselves. They don't really want to play the longer ball. They want to work the ball through the midfield. That's how they play the Dutch, and that's why they are so good. But to Matsui, Endo, Abe, the deep one, Hasibi, and on the other side, Okubu, they immediately retreat and get into good defensive positions. You defend from the front.
Komano plays the ball in towards the penalty area. Here is Matsui on the edge of the area, plays it in towards Honda. 1-2 bounces and it's behind for a goal kick. It was watched behind by Van Bronckhorst. Let's get an update from Sydney on the Rugby Union. Australia against England. Alistair Eakin.
We've got 2.5 minutes left to play here. England lead by 21 points to 20, and Johnny Wilkinson is lining up yet another penalty which could seal the deal for England. He's come on for Toby Flood, who's got an ankle problem. Wilkinson has already kicked one penalty. Matt Giddo's missed a couple of penalties for the Wallabies in recent times, one of which was bang in front of the post 15 metres out. England lead 21-20, 2 minutes to go. Wilkinson about to shoot for goal.
We're into the 17th minute here in Durban. It's still goalless. What we have here is a meeting of the very first team to qualify for these World Cup finals. That's Japan. They lost just once. That was their final game against Australia. They'd already qualified by then. And they're up against the first European nation to qualify for South Africa 2010, which was quite fitting because well over 350 years ago, a Dutchman, Jan van Riebeck, was the first European to actually land in this country, in South Africa. It's the Dutch who have a throw-in over on the far side, the right-hand side, but Van der Wiel has been dispossessed. Holland have the ball back, though. Matthijssen plays it to this near side to Van Bronckhorst. The penalty has been missed, by the way, by Johnny Wilkinson, so it remains at 21-20 to England in that match in Sydney. And on the far side, the Dutch have won a throw-in from the selfless, industrious Dirk Kuyt. And he'll just let Van der Wiel, his full-back, move up to take it. He's in the sunshine. Just over on the far side, there's a strip of the pitch bathed in sunshine. The cross comes in from Van der Wiel. That's Van Persie. Van Persie plays it back to Schneider. De Jong wants it instead. He'll find his full-back, Van Bronckhorst, on this near side, still just outside the penalty area, now on the left-hand side. Van Bronckhorst plays it back to Schneider, into the midfield. This is Everton's Heitinga, out to the far side again, to Liverpool's Kuyt. They keep doing that, and in towards Van Persie of Arsenal, but headed away, again by the Japanese defence. Nakazawa it was, and out of play for another throw-in. David Pleat. Well, in fact, we'll bring David Pleat in just a moment. We're going back to Sydney and Alistair Eakin.
We have 15 seconds left on the clock here. England are in possession inside the Australian half, and they lead the Wallabies by 21 points to 20. They are just running down the clock, completely stationary. The ball is just behind the Australian 10-metre line. It's come back to Johnny Wilkinson. He thumps it away into the stands, and England have recorded a famous win. 21-20 the final score. Finally a breakthrough victory over a major nation. And south of the equator too, only twice have England beaten the Wallabies in Australia, both times in 2003, with a side that of course won the World Cup. Until today, the only away win Martin Johnson had managed was against Italy in Rome in this year's Six Nations. This has to be the win that breeds the necessary confidence and belief to take England forward. Massive relief for Martin Johnson and his coaching staff under a huge amount of pressure. England have won 2 tries from Youngs and Ashton. Wilkinson delivering the killer blow, and England victory 21-20.
Thank you, Alistair. Still 0-0 here. Stecklenburg, the giant goalkeeper of the Dutch, has gone long, and the Dutch on the edge of the Japanese box once more. We're breaking down the right-hand side, but there was a good tackle there from Tulio Tanaka, and now the linesman has spotted an offside as well in that Dutch movement, and it will be a free kick to the Japanese. Not really had a chance, and almost 20 minutes on the clock.
Yes, I think Holland will be happier than Japan. Had the major possession, not really created a fine chance. We had Kuyt's overhead kick, we had the free kick of Schneider that just reared over the bar, but generally speaking, Japan playing a holding game. looking and hoping to get a break and to try and entice the Dutch forward and to find some space to exploit, to counter them. But generally speaking, the Dutch having the major share of the possession, and I'm sure Pik van Marwijk will be happier at the moment.
Kamano plays the ball infield for the Japanese, and it's Matsui, very busy, industrious player for the Japanese. It's played back to Hasibi as captain, but then Matsui is dispossessed, and here comes Schneider down the left-hand flank. Hasn't got a great deal of pace there, so he turns the ball back to Van der Vaart. Now it's Van Bommel. Van Bommel into his own half for Heitinga. Out to Van der Wiel on the far side. 20 and a half minutes played. You're listening to 5 Live, your World Cup station. It's the Netherlands 0, Japan 0, and Matthijssen has it for the Dutch, who probably have had 60-65% of the ball in these opening 21 minutes.
Very interesting at the moment. Schneider has gone wide on the left, probably to escape the attentions of his mark Endo, but just to see how the Japanese react to it. That's where the Dutch are clever. They can change their tactics, they can change their shape during a game, and they're quick to do that if they're not successful in any way that they're playing. They're very good at interchanging and accepting changes that the manager might make. Schneider just drifting wide.
They've got that little bit of extra spontaneity, if you like. They were, of course, finalists, famously beaten finalists in 1974 and 1978. They lost to West Germany and Argentina. Should really have beaten the Germans, I think, in the 74 final. I know that's the Dutch view anyway. They have won one major honour. They were the 1988 European champions, but they do have confidence, I think, in this group of players. Van Bommel has it, spreads play from the centre out to the right hand side again. Van der Wiel plays it to Kout, neat 1-2. In fact, they miss out Kout and bring in Van Bommel, and then it's clipped back by De Jong to Matthijssen. That wasn't the best of passes, but the defender does well, and now Van Bronckhorst has it via Van Bommel. Van der Vaart to Schneider, back to Van Bronckhorst. Almost at the midway point in this half. De Jong into the centre circle. Still not the quickest of tempos. This Durban ground is the warmest, I think, during the day of any of the South African venues. They've got a lovely climate. It's winter, but it's absolutely beautiful sunshine in the low 70s. It's absolutely perfect for football. There's hardly any wind whatsoever as Kawashima knocks the ball long to Honda. That was a good header won by Honda against Heitinga, but the Dutch have it back. Van der Wiel back to Stecklenburg in the Dutch goal. David, please.
Yes, Akubu, who is the man basically on the left-hand side of the Japanese threesome. That's Matsui and Honda, the wide men, had no chance of getting there. So the longer ball that's played to Honda, you know, if he can't control it and look after the ball and keep the ball for a few seconds and allow his midfield to get near to him, then it's a hard lone battle for him, and that quick flicked header gave his wide left player no chance of getting onto that pass.
Well, there was a promising Dutch break down this near side, the left hand side, but Schneider has handled, according to the referee. We've played 23 minutes, it's goalless, and this is Darren Fletcher.
Thanks, David. Well, having seen the Dutch in their opening match in this World Cup against Denmark, I'm not too surprised about the relatively slow tempo to their play, because that was a feature in Soccer City, but they're in so much control that they're not really overexerting themselves at all, and in the end they cantered to a relatively comfortable 2-0 win with both goals coming in the second half, and they've reverted to type here, David, for the opening quarter of this match.
Yes, they're feeling their way, but as I said before, they're so clever at knowing when and where to quicken the pace. And should Japan get a bit carried away and start to, if they intercept and counter and get too many players going forward, then when the Dutch regain possession, that's when they are ready to strike. They're clever players.
Read one or two quotes after that match from Clarence Seedorf, who gave Holland 6 out of 10 against Denmark and said they need to show more flair if they're going to go deep into this 2010 World Cup here in South Africa. Japan have got the ball with the right back Kamano. That's it long. Kubo is offside, just outside the Dutch penalty area, and that's going to be a free kick to Holland. So 0-0. Neither side have had much of a sniff of goal so far. Holland have had the lion's share of possession. The leaders of this group, with the other two nations in this group kicking off at 7:30. Cameroon against Denmark, sandwiched in between that. Ghana against Australia, licking their wounds after England beat them in the Rugby Union in Sydney by 21 points to 20. 0-0. Van Persie has used an arm to fend off Nakazawa, the long-haired Japanese central defender. That's going to be a free kick to Japan, about 10 yards inside their own half, and Van Persie penalised for lashing out with his right arm, David.
Yeah, it was just like a holding off type of attitude, trying to shield the ball but using his arm at full stretch to do so. and the very experienced number 22, Nakazawa, immediately fell to the ground as though he was poleaxed, rather disappointingly, but he's won them the free kick, and the referee certainly was happy to agree with that.
They're a confident group, this Japanese side, their 4th successive appearance in a World Cup finals. They've won 3 Asian Cups in the last 5 years, and significantly for them, their victory against Cameroon in their first Group E match was the first time they'd won a World Cup game outside Japan, so that really has injected some confidence into this team. And they've not been unduly bothered in the opening 25.5 minutes by the fact that Holland have had the lion's share of possession. White shirts and blue shorts for Japan, attacking down the right. They try and play that ball in towards Kamano, the right back who'd made a run forward. It was Hasebe, the captain, who played the ball, and it steered out for a Japan throw-in, just about level with the edge of the Holland penalty area. Battling for it now is Honda, the man that got the winning goal against Cameroon. He can't keep it in play, and it's now a Holland ball midway inside their own half, and a throw-in for their captain, the very experienced Giovanni van Bronckhorst.
Yeah, interestingly, that was the first time Kamano, the right back, has got forward, and one is always wondering whether Van Bronckhorst, if he was placed against a really pacey forward or a defender coming from deep, might he struggle? You know, he's not so good on his inside anyway. He's done a wonderful job for Holland, particularly playing at left back. We remember his Arsenal days when he played as a midfield player, and he's done remarkably well in the Dutch team. Very experienced now, of course, but you just wonder, could Japan attack that side? Because Matsui looks promising, and can Kamano get forward and support him and put some pressure on that area?
So here comes Van Bronckhorst with the fluorescent yellow armband on his left arm. Van der Vaart sprays the play out towards the Dutch right, and Dirk Kuyt just a yard in or so from the touchline. Closed down over there on the far side by Akubo. Back it goes now to Mark van Bommel. Forward towards Van Persie. It was intercepted on its way by Kuyt and partially cleared, but here come Holland again. Van der Vaart turns into trouble. Makoto Hasebe, the captain of Japan, takes it off him, but they're finding it hard to keep possession. Having said that, so are Holland, because Van Bommel has given it straight back to Japan. That was a period of sloppy play. And you talk about this problem that Van Bronckhorst might have with pace. The one area that Denmark tried to exploit was a diagonal ball out to Dennis Rommedahl behind Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. And a couple of times in the first half, it's almost brought the Danes a goal. So that is an area that coaches have already picked up on in this tournament, David.
Yeah, and of course they have to win that midfield possession first to supply those balls, to play those diagonals, you know, to get forward players in those areas. You know, you look at Dirk Kuyt on that far side, so busy. You know, we hear players complaining they've had a long season, have played a lot of games. Dirk Kuyt's played a lot of games, and he hasn't had the happiest of seasons, anyone would have thought, at Liverpool. But my word, what a grafter.
Here comes Sakubo down the left-hand side for Japan. He's got a runner outside him in the shape of Matsui. And then he was tackled by Nigel de Jong, the Manchester City player, who wins the ball back for Holland and plays it up towards Robin van Persie on the halfway line. Yet to really see the best of Van Persie in this tournament. Missed a couple of chances against Denmark and was substituted. And he's one of the players that some feel might be a good bet to win the Golden Boot in this 2010 World Cup in South Africa. 28 minutes gone here in Durban, in the sunshine, with this wonderful arch sweeping from right to left across the stadium. You can take a cable car ride over that when there's not a football match in here. And the score is Holland 0, Japan 0 in Group E of the World Cup. The winners will have a 100% record, 6 points out of 6, and be in complete control and almost in the last 16 of the competition. There's another foul by a Dutchman. This time it's Van der Vaart, who just trips up Nakazawa, the central defender, and it's a free kick to Japan inside their own half.
Yeah, good interception that was by Nakazawa, and he was coming away with the ball. Here's that ball inside the full-back area.
Tulio towards Kamano, and across comes Joris Mathiasen, who's one of the real ever-presents and shoe-ins to be selected by Bert van Marwijk in this Dutch team whenever it's selected. The man from Hamburg read the situation well and just allowed it to roll out of play away to our right-hand side for a goal kick to Holland in their bright orange shirts, black shorts and orange socks. It's a bit of a throwback to the 74 and 78 final. The white shorts have gone that were predominantly used by the Dutch team in recent times, and it's back to the old colours of the orange and black. Here's Van Bronckhorst down the left. Up the line towards Rafael van der Vaart. First time ball in, headed away by Nakazawa, and the ball is going to roll out for a throw-in on this left-hand side to Holland.
Yeah, Kamano, the full-back, caught sleeping there a little bit, but Nakazawa rescued him with that interception.
Throw-in then to the Dutch on this left-hand side. The captain, Van Bronckhorst, to take it. In his third World Cup, his 7th major championship in all. Flicked on inside the penalty area by Van Persie, cleared away by the Japanese defence. Now it's with Van der Vaart in the side still because Robben is unavailable, although it has to be said when Bert van Marwijk made a substitution against Denmark and took off Van der Vaart, introduced Elliot, the nippy winger, on the left-hand side, it did tend to balance out this Dutch team a little bit more than we're seeing again here today.
Well, he was a dribbler and he gave them a little bit of electricity on that left-hand side, didn't he? And of course he got by his fullback with a couple of clever tricks which the Vuvuzelas really enjoyed, and the volume came up loud.
Having chatted to a couple of Dutch journalists, the general feeling is that Van der Vaart and Schneider are maybe a little bit too similar to play effectively in the same Holland side, and they maybe lose a little bit of creativity without Robben on the left. Here's Van Bronckhorst on the halfway line to Van der Vaart. Van der Vaart runs into the fullback Camano, who surely fouled him, he did, and the Argentine referee Hector Baldassi has awarded a free kick to Holland on the left-hand side. They're back under the spotlight, by the way, the referees, David, after those two woeful performances we saw yesterday from the officials in the Germany-Serbia match, and then the game involving USA and Slovenia later on. So far so good though for Mr. Baldassi from Argentina.
Yes, the United States was certainly denied a third goal. I don't think there was anything wrong with that at all. I felt very sorry for them. And of course in that previous game, the Serbia-Germany game, the referee was far too quick to show the cards. Did spot the penalty though, didn't he?
Yes, he did. The linesman didn't, by the way. Which
was an interesting one, and Serbia got away with it, or certainly Mr. Vidic did.
Yep. You're not missing anything, by the way, because the ball has gone out of play. One or two players are just taking a drink down there. We've played 31 and a half minutes here in Durban, and it's 0-0 on 5 Live, your World Cup station. And the majority of the pitch now in shade. The fans on the far side, where there's huge swathes of orange-shirted Dutch supporters, they've got the sun in their faces, but in the main now, it's only the players on the Dutch right and the Japan left who have got to deal with the sunshine. It's nice and warm, there's a bit of breeze, but not too much. Perfect conditions on a ground that so far has seen the big, giant killing story of this World Cup finals. This is the ground where Switzerland beat Spain a couple of days ago with that Gelson Fernandez goal, and Japan would certainly like to put one over the more fancied Dutch team here today. 0-0 so far, and Japan have got a free kick midway inside the Holland half on the right, and they've got a couple of players over the ball. Matsui on this near side, the right. The Dutch have got a wall of 2, which has just been moved back by the referee. I think this is going to be hoisted into the Dutch penalty area. 2 or 3 Japanese players hovering on the edge of the box, including Honda, who scored in the first game against Cameroon. It's delivered into the penalty area by Hasabi, and it comes off a Japanese head. It's gone well wide. I think it might have been Honda who got the touch, in fact, nowhere near Stekelenburg's goal, David.
Yes, Honda didn't quite get himself in a good position to head the ball, and it reared very high over the bar. It probably wanted a left footer from that position there, really, to hit the in-swinger just behind the wall to give the goalkeeper a problem. That's still a ball that has given nightmares to 1 or 2 goalkeepers in this tournament so far. We certainly saw it in the Nigeria game the other day, and wanted the left footer there, wanted the in-swinger.
Holland very happy to play this match at their own pace, dictate the tempo, keep the possession, wait for the chance to come. Both goalkeepers so far, Stekelenburg for Holland and Kawashima for Japan, have been relatively unused in this match. It's 0-0, and we've played approaching 34 minutes here in Durban on 5 Live.
Now, when the Dutch are playing the ball around at the back, it's no problem. The Japanese back 4 are working Van Persie. They move backwards, but every time they play the ball square or backwards of square, the Dutch, they just push out a little bit. Then as the ball gets advanced further down the field, the back 4 just step back a few yards, but they're covering the spaces.
Long by Heitinger for Holland. That's headed away by the right back Camano. And then first to it is Arbe, midway inside his own half, but he steered the ball out of play. The ball rolls into the Dutch dugout, retrieved by one of the substitutes and handed to Van Bronckhorst, who takes the throw in to De Jong. Now here's Van der Vaart for Holland, just outside the box. Schneider just managed to keep possession, and then Honda clatters into Van Bommel about 5 yards outside the centre circle, and it's going to be a free kick to Holland. A pretty scrappy game so far.
Yeah, Van Bommel getting a lot of ball off his back 4. He's very free in that area. It's basically he's playing as the defensive midfield, and the other team are also playing with defensive midfield. His job is to mark Schneider, whereas at the moment Van Bommel has free space because the Japanese are playing deeper. They haven't got a player who's playing close. Abe is a defensive midfield player playing central, whereas on the other side, Schneider, the central midfield player, is playing as a forward player.
So free kick this to Holland. It's only 5 or 6 yards outside the centre circle, but against Denmark, Wesley Schneider did actually go for goal from here. This time he clips it into the penalty area, headed away by Abe, and then cleared away by Akubo from the edge of the penalty area, and chasing then down this right-hand side is Daisuke Matsui, and he's done well to keep the ball in play before he's been clattered by Gregory van der Veel, and I think we're going to see the first yellow card of this match shown to the youngster from Ajax.
He did very well actually on this right-hand side, did Matsui. He's the player that's caught my eye a little bit in the early stages. Van der Veel came over and it was a very, not clumsy, it was a planned body check, fully deserved free kick. And he has to learn. He didn't have to do that in that position. It wasn't as though the Dutch were caught out, but he went in rather clumsily and was determined to concede.
Only came into this Japan team during the qualifying campaign, Matsui, but as David said, he's looked pretty lively so far in the opening 36 minutes of this match. Free kick to Japan, delivered into the penalty area by Endo towards the far post, and that was a good opportunity over there on the far side for Tulio Tanaka, who got up above the Dutch defence and headed it goalwards, and headed it narrowly wide.
Yeah, not unlike John Terry in stature, runs very similarly to John Terry, but that was a superb jump. He went like a salmon at the back post, didn't quite get the pure contact that he wanted. He was challenged by, I think it was Dirk Kuyt that was going up with him.
If he's up like a salmon, I'm having salmon for my tea, because that's one heck of a big salmon, by the way. He's a big unit, isn't he, Tulio Tanaka, born in Brazil, and a very un-Japanese-like central defender. He's more European in the way he plays in terms of his physical presence, etc. Got the ball again now.
You can have sushi tonight. Is it sushi?
Well, yeah.
But not the right tuna.
Now this is a promising position for Kamano down the right, because the left back Van Bronckhorst has been caught up the pitch. Kamano's ball in towards Honda, just flicked away by Van der Veel. Honda retrieves inside the penalty area for Japan, left hand side, pokes it out towards the far side, rolled back now towards Matsui, didn't control it, volleys it goalwards, and that's a comfortable save for Stekelenburg.
Hard technique though, Darren. You know, he came to his right foot, he lifted the ball up and he volleyed it with his left foot. Wasn't an easy chance to take. It was very sensible play by Honda out on the left actually. He lost his chance to cross it early. He composed himself and played it square across the box.
It's only the second time these two nations have played each other. They first met in September 2009. It was Holland's warm-up match for the qualifier against Scotland. Holland won 3-0, but reading Wesley Schneider's comments yesterday, he did say that they were outplayed Holland for the bulk of that match, and Japan matched up very well against them. And I think we're seeing that again today, because Holland aren't creating much at all.
No, they're not getting behind them, but that's because the back four keep close together. There's very little space. Van Persie needs a runner from midfield occasionally to get beyond him. That's Schneider's job on occasions. That midfield player who supports the front man, he mustn't always be looking for the ball to feet. He must occasionally be looking to take his marker, make forward runs, make breaks between the back four, and that's what he has to do to get off the attentions of Abe.
Van der Veel on the right-hand side. 7 minutes to play in the first half. It's 0-0. Japan having the better of it right now. They've had the recent opportunities. Van der Veel just loses his way. Nagatomo takes it off him and then clears it towards Matsui, who tries to flick towards Honda. Intercepted by Van Bronckhorst on halfway, and then played in field by Schneider to Mark van Bommel. Van Bommel to Van der Veel, and then out to Dirk Kuyt on the right-hand side. Kuyt to Van der Vaart, just outside the penalty area. If you can hear us to the Vuvuzelas, whipped into the penalty area, headed away by Tulio Tanaka, and now Holland will regroup and start again with Van Bommel. Clipped in towards Van Persie, too far in front of the Arsenal man. And that's not a swarm of wasps buzzing around David Pleat and I in the commentary position. They're blowing these vuvuzelas with real gusto inside this stadium in Durban.
Yeah, fortunately they don't sting. I know, they do sting your ears.
They do sting your ears, you're right, yeah. It's interesting that only 3 of the starting 11 for the Japanese team today play outside of the J-League. When you look at the cosmopolitan team that Holland have selected, 5 countries represented, some of the biggest names and teams in European football, but it's predominantly a home-based squad which the Japanese players and the Japanese coach have to work with here.
Yeah, and in the Dutch squad, no one's from the champions. 20 Enschede. Sub-goalkeeper, but no one on the field from Mr. McLaren's side, or Mr. McLaren's ex-side.
0-0. And we've got 5.5 minutes left in this first half. Couple of games to come in the World Cup this afternoon on 5 Live. 3 o'clock Ghana, Australia, 7:30 Cameroon against Denmark. And when you think that both Japan and Holland won their opening matches in Group E, they might not be too disappointed with a draw. They'll still be pretty confident of qualifying for the last 16 in those final group games, which are next Thursday. Holland playing Cameroon in Cape Town, and Japan will travel to Rustenburg, where England also play their final group game to take on the Danes. And Japan, who certainly aren't overawed by the prospect of playing this star-studded Holland team, have won a free kick midway inside the Holland half, about 10 yards outside the centre circle. With this new ball, I know that players, when they get in this kind of range, David, do really fancy a pop.
Yes, but, you know, to get a ball in the net from that range, I would think it was overly optimistic. And we have seen, and it's been mentioned, the players are comfortable with the shorter passing, the 10, the 15-yard passes. They're not comfortable when they're having to drive the ball longer distances.
I think Honda's fancying a shot from here, got to say.
Well, he'll have to go up a gear.
Yeah, absolutely. Boom, boom. It's a free kick then to Japan. There's a 4-man Dutch wall with a Japanese player on the end of it. Central position, all of 45 yards out. He has hit it, and it's gone straight over the bar. David Bleak gave me a nudge, and had he nudged me any harder, he would have knocked my teeth out because I got my microphone right against my lip.
Sorry about that.
You can see, though, that they feel they can hit the target from that kind of distance.
Well,
I know you were talking to David Oates earlier about this ball. I was in a car with Nick McCarthy yesterday, the Wolves manager, and he took a call from Nenad Milias, who played for Serbia. And Mick said he's one of the most competent technical players that Mick's come across. And he said yesterday we're finding it really hard to deal with this ball. So the players are struggling.
On the longer passing. And that's why you're seeing less direct play. Only the Greeks that I've seen so far have played what I call direct football. Well coached. I mean, I thought Ray Hagel did excellently when he had adjusted his team quickly, his shape in that game against Nigeria. But they got a lot of crosses in. And if you look at the stats, they got a lot of shots in as well. And they're not a good team, but as a team, they played to a pattern. They knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't that overly pretty to watch, but they were quite effective in their way in that second half, the way they played.
David Pleat with us on 5 Live. 3 minutes to go in the first half. Holland 0, Japan 0. Flicked on by Van Persie. Ball works its way back to him, and then via a ricochet works out at the feet of Kamano from Jubilo Iwata, the right back. And now here comes Honda running into the Holland penalty area. Plays it square just behind Ricardo, and cleared away from the edge of the box by Gregory van der Wiel for Holland. If anything, when Japan get forward, they look more threatening than Holland do.
Well, they go at quicker pace because what they've relied on is this counter-attacking. So as soon as possession changes hands, that's the signal for players to move quickly and to try and attack the Dutch as they overcommit. In truth, neither side at the moment is overcommitting. It's still a slightly cagey game. It's been a comfortable defensive performance by Japan in this first half, well organised, very strong in the tackle. And so far the Dutch, who are patient players, using the width quite well, but so far their patterns aren't able to find any space in between the Dutch defenders.
Holland allowed a lot of possession inside their own half by Japan. They've got it with Joris Matthijssen at the moment, plays his club football in the Bundesliga for Hamburg. And then the veteran captain Van Bronckhorst plays it across the back line to Heitinger of Everton, and then to Matthijssen. And then a very un-Dutch-like high punt up the middle by Matthijssen is headed away by Tulio Tanaka, the central defender for Japan. Certainly get the impression that Van Marwijk, the Dutch coach, might want to think about a couple of alternatives here in this game, because so far the Dutch are making very little impact on a very well organised Japanese side. Nakazawa clears forward onto the chest of Honda. Honda, I think, had just backed into Van Bronckhorst, and it's a free kick to Holland, which is taken by Heitinger to Van Bommel. And again, I think we'll see plenty of passes completed by Holland. It's whether they can find the cutting edge to their play. A Kubo battling with Van der Wiel just inside the Japanese half. And the referee from Argentina has given a free kick to Holland, which is taken backwards by Van Bommel to Matthijssen. And then to Van der Vaart on the left, forward to Van Persie, who's found it very hard to shake off Nakazawa so far. Van der Vaart forward, more in hope really than expectation. Cut out by Tulio Tanaka and stabbed out for a throw into Holland. David Pleat.
Yep, same pattern continues.
De Jong with a throw in. And then Schneider gives it back to the Manchester City man, and then across into the centre circle towards Heitinger. who can step into the Japan half. We've got 30 seconds of this first half to play. 0-0 on 5 Live, with a real full day of sport for you to come, including 2 more matches in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. Ghana, Australia at 3, Cameroon, Denmark at 7:30. We've got cricket for you. If you missed the rugby union score from earlier, fantastic day for England. They beat Australia 21-20 in Sydney. Only the 3rd time an England team has won a test match in Australia, and a real breakthrough victory potentially for Martin Johnson and this current England squad. 5th day of Royal Ascot as well, the final day. The Chesham Stakes is the big race. That's off at 2:30. Cornelius and John Hunt with that, as the shot comes in from just outside the penalty area from Rafael van der Vaart, which was no problem for Kawashimi, as we move into the final 30 seconds of the minute added on by the officials here in Durban.
Yes, Van Marwijk at half-time, he will look at his dribbling players, his speedy players who are benched at the moment, people like Robben, Elia, Babel maybe, and think, do I need some more creativity, perhaps from wide positions?
Elia certainly made an impact in the second half against the Danes, added some pace and an injection of oomph maybe in this Dutch side that was a little bit easy for Denmark to contain. We're seeing a similar problem in the first half here for Bert van Marwijk, and one of the teams that came into the competition with a whole lot of goals behind them in qualifying and big expectations have rather stuttered and stumbled in the first 45 minutes here in Durban. Half-time whistle's gone, it's 0-0. Here's David Cleat.
Well, we've got a lot of sunshine, we've got a lot of colour, but we haven't got enough speed from the Dutch when they go forward. The Japanese are defending very sensibly. They've restricted the Dutch players. Abe is doing a very good job on the main playmaker Schneider, and it's been difficult for Van Persie against the 2 centre-backs, Tanaka and Nakazawa, and at the moment there is stalemate. The first goal looks as though it might change the game and also quite possibly win it, because both these teams do know how to defend, and the Dutch, of course, we know once they get in front can be inspiring, but at the moment it's stalemate.
Thank you again, Mark. A bitterly disappointing first half actually in Durban's pleasant sunshine. I know Darren saw Holland's first match against Denmark. He says the Dutch improved after the break. Elia and Afellay both came on as substitutes to offer a bit more width. I think it will be difficult. Japan, I reckon, would be pretty content with a draw. I don't know about our horse at Ascot having a Guinness with his feet. I think we're going to need more than 1 pint of the stuff if we have to endure another 45 minutes like that.
I don't think it was as bad as you're suggesting, actually. It was a tactical battle, and it's a matter for the Dutch now to try and escape the clutches of this Japanese well-organised defence. You haven't got fast, exciting football, but you're not getting it in the World Cup. And in actual fact, half-time was quite interesting. We had 6 groundsmen looking very busy, divoting invisible divots. There were some scantily dressed dancers on the screens. There was no vuvuzelas, just loud music. And the Japanese subs playing keepy-uppy. So it was interesting at half-time, and I thought the first half wasn't as bad as has been suggested.
But there were very, very few chances. Van der Vaart just made a break into the box. I just wondered whether you thought, just before I run through the teams, whether you thought there might have been a change at half-time by either of the coaches, but probably more likely Van Marwijk.
I think there'll be changes, but not yet. I think that around the 60 to 65 minute mark, if it's still a stalemate, then they'll possibly put on a wide player, the Dutch, and maybe take a midfield player off. They're playing for the first goal, and that's unfortunately, why you have this slightly cagey tactical battle. But I'm afraid in the group games you've got to expect it. Don't expect fast, free-flowing, ebb and flow games. It doesn't happen. It takes 2 teams to make a tempo of a game. 2
to tango, and it's not happening here in Durban thus far. The Netherlands with Stekelenburg in goal, Van der Wiel, Heitinga, Mathiasen and Van Bronckhorst at the back. Ahead of them Van Bommel and De Jong. Further ahead still Kout, Schneider and Van der Vaart, and up front on his own Van Persie. The Japanese team in just a moment, because Van der Vaart plays the ball left-footed towards the penalty spot. Tulio Tanaka, the Brazil-born central defender, heads clear. He's got one of those bomber haircuts, as the Japanese call them, with the ponytail. There is a throw into the Dutch on the far side, and this time it's the fullback who half clears, but Van Persie has it out towards Schneider on the edge of the penalty area. He lets fly. That's a really good block though by Endo, the Asian footballer of the year. They've taken the throw in quickly. And De Jong has got it back to that far side, and an opportunity for Van Bronckhorst to cross towards Van Persie. Header straight down into the ground and picked up by Kawashima.
Fine cross by Van Bronckhorst. He arched his back, Van Persie. It's a super cross on the run. Van Persie arched his back beautifully, headed it back across the goal, but just couldn't get enough power to trouble Kawashima, who collected very comfortably, but far more progressive move by the Dutch.
Still a good player, Van Bronckhorst, although, as I said in the first half, he is retiring after this World Cup. Kawashima is in goal for the Japanese. Kamano, Nakazawa, Tulio Tanaka and Nagatomo at the back. Abe just ahead of them. And then the front five, Matsui, Hasibi the captain, Honda, Endo and Akubo. And it is the Japanese who are in possession just at the moment, but almost immediately dispossessed by the Dutch, and the ball's played forward towards Schneider, and then Van Persie. Back it goes to Van Bronckhorst, and the Dutch obviously very, very comfortable in possession. The Japanese haven't been able to make the ball stick quite as well, so the possession certainly favours the Dutch, but they're trying to penetrate the Blue Samurai's defence, and that's a good ball forward towards Van Persie. He gets his foot to the ball and can't direct it towards goal, and in the end it almost hits the corner flag. I think it was a reasonable chance. That was certainly a very well flighted ball into the box.
If you can imagine Beckham playing that ball at his best, it was a beautiful ball played over the right centre back, Tulio Tanaka. I think it was Van Bommel that played it. Beautiful ball, onside. Maybe, knowing the skills of Van Persie, he might have tried to control the ball first before taking his shot. He hit it first time, it was difficult to take, came over slightly over his shoulder, but twice now in these early seconds, you know, we've had a Dutch chance.
It came onto his favoured foot though, as the Arsenal striker has been out for 5 months with that ankle injury, so perhaps he's not 100% at the races, as it were. Van Bronckhorst to take the throw in down the line for the Dutch. It's cleared by Nakazawa back over the halfway line, and now it will be a Japanese throw in bang on halfway, which Kamano will take. He throws it short to Matsui. Poor control from the Japanese number 8, and Holland go long towards Kout, and Kout just gets the better of Nagatomo there, but the linesman on this near side says that ball came off Kout, and it will in fact be a Japanese throw in. David Pleat.
Nagatomo looked quite quick there, didn't he? He's only a young full-back, still plays in Japan. He's an interesting one. Orthodox left-footed full-back playing against Dirk Kout. Not that Dirk Kout's got the craft particularly from that right-sided position to take him on and get beyond him, but he'll certainly work the full-back whoever he plays against.
Well, they've won a free kick, and Van der Vaart will take it. Kimona and the other fullback, Nagatomo, both favour the same foot, but one of them has to play on the wrong side. I think they're both virtually two-footed. Anyway, Van der Vaart has a free kick. It's about 15 yards outside the penalty area. It's fairly tight to the touchline on this near side. Holland attacking in the second half in their bright orange shirts from left to right, and Van der Vaart with what looks like really good delivery, and that was an exceptionally good header by Tulio Tanaka. If he got nothing to that, I think the Dutch might have had a clear sight of goal. That really was one of the best free kicks I think we've seen in this tournament. There were a couple of players just coming in at the back. I'll bring David Pleat in just a moment, but it is a corner, and this time Schneider will take it from the right hand side. The Dutch with 6 inside the penalty area, but again it's Tulio Tanaka who manages to clear. He is a big uncompromising defender, as Darren said in the first half. Not really the Japanese style, if you like, but he was born outside the country, so maybe that has something to do with it. Interesting sort of physique as well.
Very interesting, you know, as I say, apart from his physical features, his facial features and his hairstyle, he is so reminiscent to me. The way he runs, the way he plays, the way he jockeys, just is John Terry.
He doesn't look particularly quick, but he's got his head to most everything thus far, and the ball has been cleared over on that far side, but at the expense of a corner.
Yes.
Which again Schneider will take from that right hand side. It's the Vuvuzelas again. You can hear them, I'm sure, very clearly at home. Schneider takes. You can't hear the chanting because of them. Again Tanaka with a clearing header, getting to everything just at the moment. That's good play from Van Bommel. If he can keep it in, he can, but the angle very acute. Pulls the ball back, and the Japanese emerge with it. And then there's a tackle by Cat, and it's out of play on this near side for a throw-in again to the Dutch. So this is good pressure at the start of this second period.
Yes, the Holland have just upped the pace of their passing a little bit. So important. If you do get a lot of possession, it's very easy to play complacently because it's somehow too easy. You've got to drag the opposition, you've got to play quickly, angled passes.
Van Bronckhorst has it. 8 minutes gone in this second half. Kout goes short towards that ball. That's not a very good clearing header. And then Schneider. Oh, it's a magnificent goal. Schneider hit it. Oh, how he hit it. And the Dutch have the lead. The goalkeeper was very much deceived, Kawashima there. And the Netherlands are ahead. And Schneider with a cracker.
Wonderful strike. Right-footed hit. The goalkeeper's very disappointed. It seemed to swerve, and the goalkeeper was going to the right. The ball entered the net on the left-hand side. It came from a left-wing cross, was headed clear, and it came to Schneider just on the outside of the box. The goalkeeper, I think, deflected it into his own net, but it did come with some pace, certainly on the balance of play. Holland do deserve that. It was a real good hit, and the goalkeeper went to his right, and actually he's deflected it into his own net, and it was a mistake. But if you buy a ticket, you just may win the lottery, and that was Schneider there. He took a chance. They've been more positive in this half, there's no doubt about that. Had 3 or 4 efforts, and now we'll see a game. Now the Japanese will come. We'll see more of Matsui, we'll see more of Honda, we'll see more of Akubu, and you'll enjoy the rest of the second half.
Well, I hope so. I did not enjoy the first half. The game has so few chances, but that was a really well-struck shot. As you say, if you don't buy the ticket, another goalkeeping mistake, though. It has to go down at this World Cup. But I'm not sure I'm buying into the fact that there's anything wrong with the ball for that. I think that was a bad technique from the goalkeeper.
It was, but it was a fast shot. He tried to kind of beat it away, and in doing so, from the right-hand side of the goal, the ball veered into his left-hand side. He made a mess of it, of course, but we've seen a few goalkeeping mistakes, haven't we?
5 Live, the BBC's World Cup station. We're into the 10th minute in this second half, and Holland have the lead by a 0-0. Schneider of Inter Milan, the scorer. And here is De Jong, who plays it back to Matthijssen. And Japan have got to try to find a response. But they're not doing so just at the moment, because Van der Veel has nipped in to take that ball off the toe of Honda. And Stecklenburg will clear the ball over the halfway line. The entire pitch now in shade, but on the far side, those spectators on the 3 tiers are still in sunshine. We've got a lovely day, and we've had a goal. And Holland, good value, I think. They've come out in the second half with just a little bit more intent, a little bit more purpose. At 3 o'clock, by the way, on 5 Live, Ghana, Australia, Group D from Rustenburg. 7:30 in this group, Cameroon against Denmark. Ball is with Akubo, midway inside the Dutch half. Akubo running away from Van Persie. He strikes one. This time Stecklenburg takes it at the second attempt. He didn't quite get enough venom in that shot.
Good positioning by the goalkeeper, and he caught the ball. But there you saw Akubo being more positive, and that's what you will see now. You're going to enjoy this game. Well,
he's a burly, no-nonsense figure, Akubo. David, please, you're willing me to enjoy this game. I am enjoying it.
Yeah, tactically, first half, I can understand the occasional boredom, but it really was fascinating. I love the Dutch because they play with such width. Wherever you look on the field at any one time, there's always 2 players who are stretching the game on the touchline. And if they stretch the game on the touchlines, then it pulls defenders and it makes room for other players, particularly midfield players. We've talked about the Dutch for years, but there is something in their game that we must learn from.
But they've given the ball away now. And Honda plays it out to this near side. This is Endo. Endo cuts the ball back to just outside the box for Akubo. Akubo near side for Endo once more. This is Akubo. Thinks about the shot. Does shoot. In fact, rising drive over the crossbar. Never going to trouble Stecklenburg, really. About 2 yards over the bar. But I suppose worth an effort. But he had plenty of support up there.
And you see the positivity now of the Japanese team. It's a different team. They've changed their mentality. They've changed their philosophy. Now they have to go for it. And now you'll see them put in a performance. It could well be that later in the game, if they don't get the equaliser, they have to take AB, the holding midfield player, off, the one that's marking Schneider.
Well, the ball's been given away. Van Bronckhorst played it over the halfway line. There's a Japanese player, Matsui, goes down, but the referee says it wasn't a foul. And there's a Dutch player on the floor as well, and again the referee says play on. And Tulio Tanaka carries the ball over the halfway line and continues his run, and then there is a foul on Honda, and the Japanese will have a free kick. 57 minutes played, Holland 1, Japan 0 here in Durban. David, please.
Heitinga getting very tight there on Honda, making him reverse into the midfield area.
Boom. Well, I've no more of that, Ed. That's the end of the Honda jokes, I think. Ball's played out onto this near side, and the Japanese have won a corner. It's just on for them the right side of the corner flag, and they will have what must be just about their first corner of the game. It will be taken by Endo. Still plays in Asia. He's the Asian player of the year. Plays for Gamba Osaka in Japan. One of the many homegrown players in the squad. And he just wants a little bit more movement inside that penalty area. The Japanese with 5 inside the box and a couple more just around. They actually take a short corner, but it was going to be sent back to Endo. It's Matsui who tries to cross. It's blocked. It's behind for a repeat corner.
Quite a clever corner that. Matsui it was who feinted to come inside, then went towards the byline and chipped with his left foot to gain another corner.
Endo to take once more for the Japanese in towards the near post, and again whipped in and headed behind by De Jong, and another Japanese corner.
At least we're seeing variation in the corners. We saw some awful corners by the I'm going back to the Greek side because they played differently to a lot of teams. They played so many corners just high into the box without any thought. 50-50 balls for me.
Here's Endo. Will it be third time lucky? No, that's not quite so good. There was no Japanese player near that as Matthijssen heads clear. And a throw-in, which is quickly taken by Endo. Matsui tries to cross, it's blocked by Heitinga, and it's out for another Japanese throw-in. This is the best period of pressure that the Japanese have exerted in the entire match. We played almost an hour here in Durban. The Dutch leading the Japanese by a 1-0. The ball's played in towards Akubo, headed away by Heitinga, but only to this near side. There's a man wearing the number 5 shirt, the left-back Nagatomo. He plays it back to Nakazawa, and Nakazawa was upended there.
They pushed the Dutch back, there's no question about it. There's a real better mentality about the Japanese now. It was the full-back there, way in the Dutch half. Nakatomo, the left-back, quite impressive, who was getting forward there and getting fouled, and they're going to take this in-swinger.
And I think they'll leave it for Endo, perhaps. It's midway inside the Dutch half, and Endo steps up right-footed, line of 5, and there's a Japanese head on that. In the end it was Abe, the holding midfielder, who'd gone into the box, glancing header but straight into the arms of Stecklenburg. He was too far out, really. I think he was actually trying to head it on for one of the 2 incoming players.
Not an easy ball to defend. Fast, whip ball in. Difficult for the goalkeepers to read that one.
Argon here in Durban. Holland 1, Japan 0. Kout thinks he's won his throw-in. The linesman, though, says otherwise.
If Van Marwijk was thinking of a substitution before the goal was scored, you know, his thoughts probably would have receded now. He's more intent now on making sure that Japan don't advance too much into their territory. But the game has changed. The whites now are in possession. The oranges very circumspect, just watching, making sure they fill the spaces.
Yes, it's the Dutch with everybody behind the ball as Akobo skips a challenge and then plays the ball out to the far side to Honda. Good looking ball in, headed up into the air by Van der Wiel. Out of the penalty area, and the Japanese have it hooked back by Matsui. That wasn't where he intended it to go. It's had a play for a Dutch throw-in. But yeah, since the goal went in, since Schneider's thunderbolt deceived Kawashima, really Japan have had all the possession, all the pressure, and they are the country at the moment exerting all the pressure. And this is Van Persie, finds Kout, back to Van Persie. Van Persie wants the run made by Schneider, which it is, but that's good cover defending from Nakazawa. Now it's De Jong who plays it forward. There was a little flick from Schneider, but there was nobody up ahead of him, so that was pretty pointless, really. Matsui has it. Referee says get up as a Japanese player. Akubo goes down, and eventually the ball is cleared by Nagatomo over the halfway line. This is Kout working back into his own half. His first touch was not very good, but he managed to play it off Honda and get it back. And now Heitinga plays it out to that left-hand side. Van Bronckhorst wants it, and Van Bronckhorst gets it from Van der Vaart. Here's the former Rangers and Arsenal man. Plays it forward towards Schneider. And in the end, Kamano manages to hook clear for the Japanese. 62 minutes played in Durban. Holland 1, Japan 0. Count has it midway inside the Japanese half. Good looking ball played into the penalty area. Stopped by Nagatomo. And eventually the Japanese clear. And they hold up the ball just inside their own half. Honda combining with a Kubo. But eventually they lose possession and Van der Vaart plays it back to Matthijssen. David, please.
Yeah, that's Celtic player Nakamura just warming up on the touchline. Bright yellow boots. We know he's got a wand of a left foot. He'll come on to try and create a chance. We also know, of course, that he's a free kick specialist, and that could be important.
Well, there's a giant banner over to our right. It's actually fluttered up in the breeze, I think, so you can't read it clearly, but it just says Shunsuke, which is Nakamura's first name. The former Celtic and Espanyol man is now into his 30s. He's playing back in the J-League for Yokohama. And he's not on just yet. He's just still doing his warm-up exercises. The ball hasn't gone out of play. 18 minutes played in this second period in Durban. The stadium within spitting distance of the Indian Ocean. It's a lovely setting. It's a wonderful stadium. I think we've decided, David, Darren and I, that this is probably the best of the 4 or 5 we've been to so far.
Yep, so far when our emigration papers come, we're going to decide to come to Durban, I think.
Well, it's even got the sea, which does make a difference. Here is the change being made. It's Matsui who's coming off, and Nakamura who will replace him. So it's pretty much a like-for-like swap, as you say. He's got a wonderful touch, Nakamura, in the veteran stages of his career now. He's a massive favourite, though, wasn't he, at Celtic Park?
Yes, can be a little bit lazy, perhaps. Not the quickest, perhaps. Not the bravest, perhaps. But a clever footballer.
So Matsui replaced. Nakamura is on, and Japan have possession down the far side. And this is Honda on the edge of the penalty area. Works it to a Kubo. Now, can he find an opening? He shoots. It's a good shot, but it's beyond Stecklenburg and also 2 yards beyond the left-hand post as we almost reach the 65th minute with Holland leading here by a goal to nil. Here's David, please.
Well, that was great support play by the left-back, which enabled the Japanese forward to come inside and hit that shot just past Stecklenburg's post. Really good support. Kamano, they're playing now from fullback. The fullbacks are beginning to move into the opposition half, whereas in the first half, whilst it was 0-0, they just kept their areas, never moved out of them, and that's why we had a bit of a stalemate game. We haven't got that now. We've got a very interesting game because we're seeing the Dutch having to defend.
Well, they've got the ball at the moment just outside their own penalty area with Heitinga played forward, and it evades Arbe and runs back to the goal scorer Schneider, and then Van der Vaart back to Van Bronckhorst. This is De Jong, bang on halfway for the Dutch, who lead by a goal to nil. Over halfway now with Heitinga. Plays it short to the deep-lying Van Persie. This is Kout, still midway inside the Japanese half. Played back to Van der Wiel. Van der Wiel to Matthijssen. Into their own half now go the Dutch. And Matthijssen's ball to Van der Vaart was not a good one, but neither then was Kamano's first touch, and the Dutch have the ball back once more. Wesley Schneider's goal in the 53rd minute is the goal that separates the sides just at the moment as the ball is out of play on this near side. The Dutch want a free kick. They've only got a throw in fact it might even be a Japanese throw in. No, the referee says it is a free kick in fact, and Van Persie just moves away from the ball, and Van der Vaart will whip the ball into the penalty area. We've seen a couple of really, really good deliveries from the Real Madrid man. Not a shoe-in in the Madrid first team by any means this season, but Rafael van der Vaart has got a sweet left foot and up he steps, but this time they give him the big build-up and he ruins it all. Ball never gets past the first defender. This is a Kubo. The dummies with Van der Vaart on his tail, and a Kubo just launches the ball downfield. Hits it about 70 yards, but over the halfway line and out of play for a throw-in. Yeah,
he did well, really, because he had no choice. He started to get a little bit clever inside his own 18-yard box and realised he was in trouble and just hooked the ball to safety. Wanted a line out, I think.
A reminder, by the way, that England won in Australia. That ball was over Van Persie's head. It was a good cross, or it appeared a good cross at first sight from Schneider, but it had a little bit too much on it. It was about 2 yards over the head of Van Persie. A goal kick to the Japanese. David Pleat once more.
Well, we're now seeing Japan pushing more forward. They've also pushed a little bit more support for Honda up the front. The player that's come on, Nakamura, is playing very loosely towards the front. He'll hope to gain some space to receive the ball. He's chasing this ball at the moment into a high inside leftish position, but he isn't. He looks as though also he's put on a shade of weight since we last see him performing in Scotland.
There's perhaps a chance for the Dutch as they dispossess of the Japanese inside the centre circle. Final group games, of course, are simultaneous. They're both on Thursday. The Dutch play Cameroon in Cape Town. There's a harmless looking cross from the Dutch over on the far side, rolls out of play for a goal kick. The Japanese play Denmark in Rustenburg. You can hear those matches, of course, on the BBC, on 5 Live and our sister station Sports Extra. Here's David Pleat.
It was interesting at the start of the game. We thought that they might exploit Van Bronckhorst with the speed. Haven't done that, the Japanese. Van Bronckhorst has been a steady performer. He belies his age. He's 35 years. He's kept at it quite well.
Darren Fletcher looks like I've pinched his bacon, and the reason is I've just slightly overrun my time there. Go on, Fletch. You see, I was enjoying it in the second half.
Eventually. Had it been like the first, he would have come earlier, David, wouldn't he? They wouldn't have been ready for him. So 1-0 to Holland, and it really has, as David said, rousted up this Japanese side to attack the Dutch more in the second period. I think we all got excited when we saw Diego Forlan strike the other night against the French, and we've seen Schneider's today, but on both occasions there was an element of fortune, the deflection for Forlan and the poor goalkeeping for Schneider's. Here come Japan, slid into the centre, might fall for Honda at the far post, and steered behind by Van der Veel, who tracked him an awfully long way to make that challenge.
That's a great ball in. Honda was only inches away from it. Superb pass, good break. They are quick, they are dangerous, there's no question. The Dutch can't relax.
Just one or two discussions happening on the Dutch bench. I think Bert van Marwijk might be considering a change. They're under pressure, Holland here, but leading 1-0. Nakamura to this left side and clipped into the box, into the danger area, and skied over his bar by Robin Van Persie. It was a ball in by Endo from this left-hand side. Van Persie didn't really know where he was and did very well not to smash that into his own goal.
Yeah, Nakamura it was who played the ball. There was no offside. Down to the side on the left-hand side. It was then knocked in by Endo and just got away for a corner kick, but it's building. The pressure's building.
So the former Celtic man Nakamura with his second successive corner, this time from the right-hand side. Here it comes, Nakamura's left foot into the centre, hits Honda at the near post. Holland will try and clear, and they managed to, with Gregory van der Veel, who was able to beat Nakazawa to the ball on the edge of the penalty area. Looks to me as though Elia is going to be coming on very soon. He's just been shouted back from the warm-up area behind the goal away to our left to the Dutch bench. He's having a chat with Frank de Boer, the assistant to Bert van Marwijk, and that, of course, with Japan pushing forward with his directness and pace, will give Japan something to think about at the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to threaten the Japanese defence now when they get possession of the ball. We've just seen Schneider unusually give the ball away with a crossfield pass, which was went for a throw-in, but the Dutch happy at the moment to contain. It's a dangerous policy. I would think they would rather keep playing the same they were. They had a bit of rhythm in their play around the time they scored the goal.
So Holland 1, Japan 0 on 5 Live from the BBC. We're live at a slightly more blustery Durban now, this Moses Mabhida Stadium on the shores of the Indian Ocean. Couple of games to come this afternoon. Ghana, Australia from 3. Cameroon against Denmark from 7:30. Japan attacking with Nakamura. Midway inside the Holland half in a central position. Plays it to Akubo. His ball was slightly behind Arbe, but Arbe will feed the ball out towards the right, towards Kamano. His cross was poor. It's gone over the bar. And I'm not surprised that Elgero Elia from SV Hamburg, who's a quick winger, who was really impressive when he came on for Van der Vaart against Denmark, is replacing the same player here in Durban with 18 minutes to go. David Pleat.
Well read, Darren. I think it was about 50 minutes ago when you suggested that would be the change. I think he's got time to make an impression, time to get on the break and manoeuvre a goal for Holland, but It's fascinating at the moment because Japan are surprising people, I think, the way they're taking this game to Holland.
Be interesting to see what you think about the Dutch side, David, now Ellie is on tactically, because they looked a lot more balanced against the Danes with him on the left-hand side. It was almost a taste of what's to come when Robben's available. He's on the bench today, but the hamstring not quite right. He's not trained fully for the past week or so. He did manage a full session yesterday, we're told, but not surprisingly, Bert van Marwijk electing not to use him until it's necessary, until that hamstring is completely healed. So Holland 1, Japan 0. Japan have responded well to Wesley Sneijder's 53rd minute goal. Elliot down the left. First chance to run at the defence. Nagatomo is over there helping out Kamano. Elliot gets the ball again, loses concentration, rolls out of play. And it's a throw into Japan, which is taken in the direction of Hasibi, the captain, then forward towards Honda. That slips away from the man who scored the goal against Cameroon in Japan's opening group match, and it's all the way through to Stekelenburg, the goalkeeper, away to our left for Holland. That's a decent kick as well, out towards Sneijder. Sneijder turns out to Elia left-hand side, one-on-one with Nagatomo, crossed in by Elia into the middle. Nakazawa clears the ball away on the volley, and that's then headed forward by Van der Veel. Van Persie's offside, and that's a free kick to Japan. David Pleat.
There's been few offsides in this game, both teams playing over the depth of the field, neither team pushing out quickly behind their midfield, so the compactness isn't there. They do play over the width and the depth of the field. I enjoy football that way. It doesn't get stifled.
We're in the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Just across the way is Kings Park, where the British Lions play when they come over here on the rugby union tours. It's been a good day for the English rugby union players. They beat Australia 21-20 in Sydney earlier. Martin Johnson's biggest win so far in a test match, and just the third time Alistair Eakin told us that an England team has won a test match in Australia. So significant day maybe for Martin Johnson. 1-0 here to Holland in the World Cup, and Van Bommel has dispossessed Hasibi, and forward come the Dutch over the halfway line. Van Persie towards Sneijder in the penalty area. Not the best of passes by Van Persie, and it's cleared out by Tullio for a throw-in on this right-hand side, with Japan preparing what appears to be, David, a double change down there now.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. The Dutch there, Van Bommel intercepted, and they were away. They saw the opportunity to overload. Kawashima was a little bit circumspect in his judgment there, and in the end Tullio just knocked the ball away, fortunately.
Schneider's ball in from the right towards Van Persie in the middle. Tullio clears onto the chest of Nigel de Jong, and then out towards the left back and captain Van Bronckhorst, wide on that far side of the field, as Holland in orange and black play from left to right in this second half on 5 Live, with the lead, with Japan preparing to send on Tamada and Okazaki for the last 15 minutes of the match, a team that need a goal. Here's Van Bommel, the son-in-law of the Dutch coach, Bert van Marwijk, which maybe helps a place in the side, maybe gets you through 1 or 2 lulls in form, David.
He's done very well, though. You know, I have to say that Van Bommel he's extended his career. He's kept himself fit. I think I can remember when Holland came to Tottenham a few years ago and played England. He was very good, and at the time Tottenham were very interested, I have to tell you, in signing him, and they decided to go to Germany. He's done very well, Van Bommel. He went to Spain first and then to Germany, but he justifies his position in the team.
33 now, Mark Van Bommel started the Champions League final opposite Wesley Sneijder for Bayern Munich, and a bit of a fallout with Marco van Basten while he was the coach, but ever since his father-in-law got the job, he's been back in the international setup for the Dutch and plays a very important role as one of those screening midfield players that allows so much freedom to the rest of the Holland team. De Jong and Van Bommel have a big role to play.
Yeah, evidently he can only play in the team provided he doesn't talk tactics to his father-in-law's daughter.
Over Sunday lunch. That's a long ball that's got out of play by Holland, and it enables Japan to make the changes. And the first player to come on will be Okazaki for... I think it's the captain. In fact, it's Okubo who's coming off, and Hasibe is coming off. So the 2 players, one on the left-hand side and one of the midfield 3, are the 2 changes. So Tamada and Okazaki are on, and the players who have gone off, the captain Hasibe and the number 16 Yoshito Okubo, who was pretty lively and robust in the first half, Okubo, but he's gone missing a little bit in the second. Okazaki plays for Shimizu Espulse in the J-League, and he's had a good goal-scoring season for them. Tamada is from Grand Passaic, Gary Lineker's old club when he was over there. and he scored in the 2006 World Cup against Brazil. So 2 attacking players sent on by the Japanese coach Okada, who I read today plans to retire after the World Cup and become a farmer. If he beats Holland today, they might treat him to a farm, you never know. 13 minutes to go. Holland 1, Japan 0 on 5 Live, your World Cup station. All 64 games live from the ground. Nobody else can offer that kind of service. And Japan have got the ball with their right back, Kamano, down below us in front of the Japanese coach. Takeshi Okada is looking on with his smart dark suit, a grey one, for the grey-haired Van Marwijk a little bit further up the touchline. Elia's not made much of an impact since coming on, shows what I know. Japan have won it back with Nakamura. Now Elia wins it back though for Holland, and he's got a bit of space and he's got pace to run as well. Plays it in towards Van Persie. I think it was a shot that got deflected more than a pass. It was in front of Van Persie and Kawashima was off his line to gather.
Yeah, I think Elia's shot, the sting was taken out of it by the Japanese challenge, and Van Persie just raced onto the ball, but it was always going to be the favourite ball for Kawashima, the goalkeeper. He'll be regretting that mistake. Could be crucial.
He almost dived past it, didn't he? Ended up coming off his elbow and into the opposite side of the net. That's not to take anything away from the clean strike from Schneider. He really hit it like a rocket, but just like we've seen on a couple of occasions, 1 or 2 goalkeepers are prone to the odd clanger.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the press conference he won't want to swerve the question, but he will talk about the swerve of the ball, because I think it was a very difficult one to hold on to, but he did really get it wrong.
Japan have done well. When you think that Holland are one of the more favoured teams in this World Cup, they've given them an awful lot to think about, the Japanese. It's been anything but plain sailing, a significantly more difficult game today for the Dutch than they faced against Denmark, who qualified very well. And I think we've seen, David, haven't we, a gradual progression of Japanese football, and they're able now to come into a competition like this and play very well against a significant European team.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on that. I think they're a good team. There is no question about that. They're tactically aware, that they've got speed, and they know how to play defensively, which is important. They know how to counter-attack.
Here come Holland though down the right. Gregory van der Velde, the right back, who's not been able to get forward very much in the game. Right edge of the penalty area, bends the cross in straight at big Tulio Tanaka, and that clatters off the Japanese defender and out for a throw into Holland. You might well have suggested there that Van der Velde should have done better from that position, and then Holland rather make a mess of the throw in and eventually bundle Honda over on the halfway line, and that's a free kick to Japan.
Yeah, a real shunt from behind there from the centre back, but is still playing that centre forward role. He's racing, he's running, he's still working hard there. Still another goal in this. I'm quite sure there's a goal in this yet.
One of only 4 in the Japanese squad that actually play their football in Europe. Here they come down the right, Japan, just outside the penalty area with Nakamura. That's forward towards the fullback who'd got forward. Kamano runs out of room, and it ricochets off his shin and behind for a goal kick to Holland. The one thing that Okada has been pretty honest and open about, David, is the fact that the one area of his squad that is weak and doesn't match up very well is the front players. He doesn't have top quality front players at this level, and it's pretty evident today. There are a few nations though in the same boat.
Absolutely. You know, we look at our side, we have Rooney, who's a top player who we know can play at the very highest level, but when you're talking about this, the quality that's required here to win a World Cup, you know, are there enough top quality English forwards in our game?
Honda's progress has been pretty remarkable. If you look, he didn't start any of the qualifiers. He got the start against Cameroon and scored the goal. He's been a big bonus to this Japanese squad. Has Keisuke Honda from CSK Moscow with the blonde hair. Not had much of a chance in this match so far today, though, despite plenty of promising situations for Japan. Holland lead 1-0. That was handball, wasn't it, by Wesley Schneider? It was, as he tried to control it. And Japan are given the free kick, and they've got the ball with Nakazawa midway inside their own half.
What you do know is, when you look at the Dutch, they understand each other's play. Although the Japanese are having the ball now and they're attacking them, they've shown that they can defend as a group. They understand each other's play.
Here comes Japan. It's Tamada. You say Tamada, I say Tamada.
Yeah, I also say they probably knew the team more than 2 hours before the kick-off.
Yes, that might help, wouldn't it? Yeah, they certainly look quite together. Afellai's going to come on for Holland. It's almost the same script that Van Marwijk used against the Danes. He took off Van Persie for Afellai and played Kout through the middle, so we'll see if he does the same again today. He certainly is a creature of habit if you speak to 1 or 2 Dutch journalists. Crossed in from the right. That's a ball in towards Tullio at the far post, who just managed to get between Heitinger and Dirk Kuyt, who was tracking back. And the change this time is to take off Wesley Sneijder and to send on Ibrahim Afellay of PSV Eindhoven. He plays the defensive midfielder for PSV, but played wide when he came on against the Danes, David.
Yeah, decent passing player. Sneijder will get warm applause. Hasn't been that excellent today, but of course he scored the vital goal. I thought the marking player Avi did a very good job on him in first half, and it might have been mainly for that reason that the game appeared quite dull, but it was an effective tactic for the Japanese.
Gets a pat on the back from Bert van Marwijk as Wesley Sneijder of Inter Milan, Champions League winner, Serie A winner, Italian Cup winner this season, and off the mark in the World Cup 2010 in South Africa with that fierce shot that Kawashimi, when he looks back on the video later, will know he should have done so much better with. We've got 7.5 minutes to play here, with Ghana, Australia to come, followed by Cameroon, Denmark, and that big race as well at 2:30 at Royal Ascot, the final day of the meeting, 2:30, the Chesham Stakes, which is the big one for you today. You'll hear it on 5 Live. Here's Robin van Persie, runs down the right towards the byline. 3 Japanese defenders round him. Challenge comes in from Tullio, and then it's cleared away by Kamano up towards the halfway line. And Honda, clash of heads there involving Honda and Van Bommel. I think Van Bommel indicates it might have been an elbow from Honda. The referee was right on the spot. He's been pretty unfussy, hasn't he, the referee? He's just gone about his business and we've hardly noticed him.
Yeah, interesting, the Japanese have switched their fullbacks. Kamano, who David was saying earlier on, is very much a left-footed player playing on the right. Anyway, Kamano's gone to the right-back position now, and Nagatomo's gone on to the other side. Just something that they may get something from if they get into the other half of the field.
He's certainly dealt with Elia better than Lars Jakobsen, the Blackburn defender, did in the opening match when Elia ran him ragged for the last 15 minutes of that game. But Nagatomo has dealt with the situation quite well, and they've looked pretty unflustered defensively, Japan, despite all of the Holland possession at times in the game. And they look like they've got a goal in them at some stage if they can just get the rub of the green in the final third. Abe's been fouled by De Jong. Japan in their white shirts and blue shorts are coming forward from right to left, but Holland have won it back, and it's with Elia down the left. That's a fantastic ball to Afellay, in behind the defenders. Afellay to win it for Holland. Afellay shot, brilliant save by Kawashima. He just lost control at the vital moment at Afellay. The goalkeeper spotted it, raced off his line and smothered it, and Japan stay in the game. David Pleat.
I also thought there was an alternative for him there. I think Van Persie was in a decent position maybe to receive the ball, but all credit to the goalkeeper. He really rescued his team there. It was a clever Dutch play, beat the Japanese defence just pushing out.
Here's Kuyt midway inside the Japanese half for Holland. They did score late with 5 minutes to go against Denmark in the opener when they passed Denmark to death, and eventually the Denmark defence broke and the second goal went in, and it just added a bit of gloss to the opening victory for the Dutch. At the moment they're on course for 6 out of 6. Only Argentina have managed to do that so far in the competition. We've seen France, Spain and Germany lose in the last couple of days or so, and England drop points in both of their opening matches. It's not been a good tournament so far for the fancied nations, but the Dutch have done all that they can do by winning their first 2 matches if they can hang on for another 5 minutes. They've given a free kick away though, just outside the centre circle inside their own half. Mathiasen was the guilty man, and it will give an opportunity here for the Japanese to get the ball into the penalty area.
Yeah, another free kick inside the half. All the Japanese players going forward. Can they get a header in? The 2 centre-backs have looked very strong in the air, the Japanese centre-backs. Can they get a vital header in, attacking the other goal?
Endo with Yalis Band is standing over the ball. Tullio's gone forward. Nakazawa's in there as well. Okazaki as well, who's off the bench. It's whipped in towards Nakazawa and headed away from inside the penalty area by Mathiasen, and out for a throw into Japan on the left. Nakamura to take it, the first Japanese player to score a goal in the Champions League, and scored a couple of memorable ones from free kicks for Celtic in that competition. Gets it to Nakazawa inside the centre circle, and then forward to Endo, lifted forward into the penalty area. Stekelenburg comes, jumps too high for Shinji Izaki, and has the ball inside the penalty area for Holland, and he's in no rush with 3.5 minutes to play, and the Dutch preparing a third and final change. Just looking down there who it is. I think it's Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, it is, the number 21, the AC Milan striker. and he's going to be coming on for the last couple of minutes or so just to waste a bit of time. Offside flags up, free kick to Japan.
I would have thought a quicker one. I think they're saving Robin, really. They're hoping that they're going to get through and then they can use him. It was interesting in the first game, all the 4 defenders played the full 90 minutes. It looks as though once again in the next game he's going to play a settled side. I believe the more you play together, the better you should become, and that's why I think the less changes you make, the better, once you've settled on your best side when you're going into a tournament.
Well, Robin van Persie is coming off, so it's a straight swap. Klaas-Jan Huntelaar will come on. We've had conflicting reports about this hamstring of Arjen Robben. Before the Danish match, the opening game for Holland, all the rumours were that he's had this miraculous recovery from the hamstring strain. Then I read yesterday that he took a full part in training yesterday and could be considered today. I spoke to a Dutch journalist before the match and he said he's nowhere near as healthy as he's being claimed at the moment. Here's Huntelaar just outside the penalty area. Afellay takes over. Afellay to seal it. The goalkeeper denies him again. And then via deflection of Tulio, it's hooked off the line by Nakazawa. Behind for a corner. Affelay's had 2 opportunities to open his account in the World Cup finals.
Yeah, great opportunity. Once again, racing through. Took the ball into the box, left-hand side, hit the ball. And the 2 Japanese centre-half got almost into a terrible tangle. Tulio and Nakazawa. And they managed to just drift the ball over the byline.
Holland corner with 2 minutes to play, and the man who's guilty of the 2 misses, Afellay, delivers it from the left in towards Cowton, headed away by Tulio for Japan. Controlled by De Jong midway inside the Japanese half. Back it goes to Heitinga. Long diagonal ball out towards Afellay on the left, and how many times do you see that? A diagonal ball, overhit, with the ball. It's not the altitude here, we're at sea level. And it's gone out for a throw into Japan on the far side. Yeah, long range of passing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sometimes called the glory ball, the honeymoon ball. You know, they're looking for something special, and it's who is it to impress? Unless it disturbs the balance of the defensive shape, then it's not necessarily always a good ball. But of course, a lot of spectators see that ball hit 50, 60 yards, and when it does find its target, they automatically assume what a great pass it was.
Not the usual Japanese efficiency on the far side, and foul throw by Nagatomo, but the Dutch throw-in that resulted doesn't come to anything. And here's Honda running over the halfway line. He went down, he'd lost his balance. The referee's seen that correctly, in my opinion. I don't think he was caught by Van Bommel. I think he was gradually losing balance. The referee says play on, and now Japan have got it again.
I tend to disagree with you there. I think as he was driving forward, Van Bommel did catch him.
Well, we'll see if it can result in an opportunity for Japan. They've lost it through Tamada on the left-hand side, but it's won back well by Nagatomo. Now here's Nakamura, and then short and square into the centre circle to Endo. Out towards this left-hand side, and Kamano. Forward it goes. That'll be cleared away by Van Bronckhorst, and should go all the way through to the goalkeeper, Kawashimi, away to our right-hand side.
Yes, manager Okada desperately pushing them out, urging them forward. They've won a few friends, I think, with the way they've come back in this game.
Nagatomo's ball flicked on by Tulio. Chance for Japan, and he's put it over. What an opportunity that was. Nagatomo's long ball flicked on by Tulio Tanaka, and then there was Okazaki, it was, the substitute, angle of the 6-yard box on the left-hand side with a volley that he couldn't keep down, and there was the chance for Japan.
Yeah, hit it rather quickly. He had the attention of the Dutch defender just coming across him. He snatched at it a little bit. He had no choice, really. I think it was Heitinga who was coming across. Might have been Matthiessen, but it was an important block.
3 minutes of injury time to play. That was a scare for the Dutch. Probably just about deserve a draw, Japan, on the balance of play. I don't think Holland have necessarily done that much to win the game in terms of controlling things that you might expect. Here's Afellay. Could have put a different look on the scoreline had he been a little bit more clinical in front of goal, but Kawashimi denied him twice, and now Holland, with the vuvuzelas blowing around this Moses Mabhida Stadium here in sunny Durban, just content to keep the ball. Stecklenburg hits it long. Kaut flicked it on. Huntelaar won't get there. Kaut had pushed his marker, and it's a free kick to Japan midway inside their own half. And it's maybe the last opportunity for them to salvage something from this Group E match. They're going to send this long. Yuji Nakazawa from Yokohama has gone forward. Marcus Tulio Tanaka is in there as well. Free kick taken by Abe towards the edge of the box. Tanaka was the target. Headed away by Heitinga for Holland. Picked up now on the right by Endo, who rolls it forward for Nakamura. He's tackled by Elia. Nakamura wins it back for Japan. It's with Tamada now on the far side. Wriggling forward now is Nagatomo. Gets the ball infield then. Can't get away from the challenge of De Jong initially. Then he's gone down inside the box and it's a penalty. Nigel De Jong's push. In fact, it's not. He's pointing for a goal kick. Well, I thought he pointed to the penalty spot, and so did you, David.
I don't deny that. I think there was 80,000 people here, or whatever the crowd is tonight, at that minute that when De Jong held his hands up immediately.
To the spot, didn't you?
Well, he just got in front of him. I thought he put his arm on his back.
It looks like a penalty as well when you see the replay. The only thing in Nigel De Jong's favour is the fact that the ball might have been rolling out of play. That's all I can think of. But he certainly gestured in the direction of the penalty spot. Then he awarded the goal kick, much to the relief of Bert van Marwijk and the Dutch players.
Well, it was one of those awful decisions if you're on the receiving end as a manager, where he points and he's pointing in the direction of both the penalty spot and the 6-yard box for the goal kick, and you're not sure. You hold your breath.
No penalty. If you're a Holland fan listening to 5-5, don't worry. Holland 1, Japan 0, and we've got about 30 seconds of stoppage time to play. And despite it not being a vintage performance by Holland, they've been tested here by Japan today. They've come through it. Looks like they'll go to 6 points out of 6, and that's as good as you can be to start off a World Cup finals tournament where you're among one of the more favoured nations. The Argentine referee blows the full-time whistle. 2 wins out of 2 for Holland. Wesley Sneijder with a goal. A rocket shot that Kawashimi should have done better with. Late scare when the penalty wasn't given by the Argentine referee. The Japan players troop off disappointed. Holland celebrate, David Pleat, because they've won 2 out of 2.
Yes, the result is everything, I'm sure, to them at this moment in time and to their supporters. It wasn't an exhilarating game, but it was a very interesting game. I thought the Dutch patience was severely tested in the first half against strong, well-organised Japanese resistance. The game changed with a Sneijder goal, a fortuitous effort, and mentally, all of a sudden, the Japanese began to believe in themselves and began to put pressure on the Dutch, and it made it a very good second half. Apelai had chances, in truth, better chances than anything that Japan could produce, although right at the death, Akasaki just hit the ball over the bar, and then there was that hold your breath situation when there may have been a penalty. But all in all, a very, very good second half and a very interesting game.
Holland haven't found top gear as yet, but they've won 2 out of 2, and we've seen enough in the opening couple of matches to suggest that Japan can do enough in their final match against Denmark to reach the last 16 as well. And by the way, Mark, hope that my shout for a penalty didn't force you to scatter Graham Taylor's tactical sugars from your desk in there. 1-0 to Holland, and they've got 2 out of 2 in Group E.